Today I am going to discuss union budget problem, and this is the current type of problem which are coming in the examination nowadays. Earlier this is not coming like this. You have to find out all these things, and I try my best to tell something about it. Now I am discuss some formulas. Revenue deficit. Yesterday I have teaches all this GDP concept, union budget in theory, but now I am only give some outline for you and trying to tell something about it. That revenue deficit is only calculated by using formula revenue expenditure minus revenue receipt. First of all, you know about the revenue expenditure and what type of component is coming in this revenue expenditure and what type of component is coming in revenue receipts. And gross fiscal deficit, total expenditure that should be included loans and net of recovery minus revenue receipt including external grant minus non-debt receipt. Net fiscal deficit or fiscal deficit is fiscal deficit minus net lending, and gross fiscal deficit is also known as fiscal deficit, so don't try to confuse. Gross primary deficit is primary deficit means you have to subtract interest payment from fiscal deficit, then that is gross primary deficit. It is very easy to remember. Gross primary deficit, primary means interest payment, should be deducted from the gross fiscal deficit, and net primary deficit means net fiscal deficit minus net interest payment. Net means net, all should be net. Net fiscal deficit, how you can calculate net fiscal deficit? This is very easy to calculate net fiscal deficit. If you know about the net lending and deduct that net lending from the fiscal deficit, then you get the net fiscal deficit, which is very important. Now I am going to discuss the problem part, which is I told you that how can I will solve all this problem. It is very easy to, data are given below. I made that problems according to me. Revenue receipt data will be given rupees 8,79,232. Tax revenue will be 741,877. Non-tax revenue 137,355. Capital receipt 5,31,140. Recovery of loans 15,060 rupees only. Other receipt 25,890 rupees. Borrowing and other liabilities 4,90,190. Total receipt will be given 14,10,372. Non-plan expenditure 996,747 on revenue account, of which मीन्स नॉन प्लान एक्सपेंडिचर का रेवेन्यू अकाउंट में कितना पार्टिसिपेशन है, तो ये है नॉन प्लान एक्सपेंडिचर ऑफ रेवेन्यू कैपिटल अकाउंट, रेवेन्यू अकाउंट सॉरी. इन दैट रेवेन्यू अकाउंट 9,14,306. Interest payment will be there 13,117. On capital account 82,441. Plan expenditure will be coming here, and on revenue account is there. You know, I discussed all these things in previous union budget. You have to see that videos. And plan expenditure 4,13,625. On revenue account 3,29,208. On capital account 84,417. Total expenditure will be the, you know about the expenditure part or two part, plan and non-plan, and that non-plan, plan and non-plan, there is a two part, plan non-plan expenditure revenue account and capital account, and plan expenditure revenue account and capital account, both are given here. And revenue expenditure will be the, you know about the revenue expenditure only. Revenue expenditure is revenue part of non-plan expenditure and revenue part of plan expenditure. Only both are added, then you get 12 lakh, and data will be given for total expenditure 14,10,372, and revenue expenditure is given 12,40,000. If it is not given, you have to calculate all this type in the numerical. of which grant for creation of capital asset 1,115,710 is given, and capital expenditure given 1 lakh. Capital expenditure means expenditure are two type of non-plan and non-plan, and that non-plan, if there is a capital expenditure, and plan expenditure there is a capital expenditure, and both are added, then you get 1,66,853.58. Find revenue deficit, fiscal deficit, primary deficit. Earlier I have told all this. So first of all, see some important part of this. You know revenue receipts. How revenue receipt is calculated? Tax revenue is there and non-tax revenue is there. Both are given here. If it is not given here, you only given the part of the gross tax revenue, and you have to calculate all this. But here given tax revenue and non-tax revenue. You add these two part, you can get this 7 lakh and 741,877 plus 137, then you get 87 and total revenue receipt. Capital receipt is also given here. Only some parts are given. You have to consider all this some part. I have written 567 plus means capital receipt is calculated for recovery of loans, other receipt and borrowing. It is not given in the examination, only given the data, recovery of loan, other receipt, or maybe it be unnumbered. It is not given like a serial wise. Capital receipt, recovery of loan, it may be given. You have to remember all this, the component which I told earlier in the union budget videos. So for refer that video and you can get all this data, how you can calculate and how you remember. Total receipt means you know revenue receipt plus capital receipt is total revenue receipt. Non-plan expenditure I have always told there are two parts. One is revenue part and one is capital part. Here interest payment is given in between. It means you do not go to add 11, only add 10 plus 12. Means on revenue account and capital part non-plan expenditure is total will be given here. Similarly, plan expenditure on revenue account and capital account both are given below the plan expenditure. For that reason you are only adding the 14 and 15. Total expenditure means you have to add only non-plan expenditure and plan expenditure. Means 9 is the non-plan expenditure, you see, and plan expenditure is 13. For that reason 9 plus 13 is total expenditure. Revenue expenditure is, you know, revenue both part of the non-plan here, non-plan on revenue account. See 10 is the non-plan of revenue account, non-plan expenditure part. For that reason that value will be taken, and in that plan expenditure on revenue account that value will be taken, and that will be added after some time. Then you get that 12,43,000. And capital expenditure similarly 12.15, 1,66,858. Now move to the numerical part. How to calculate revenue deficit? You know revenue deficit means revenue. We know about the revenue expenditure minus revenue receipt. Now you calculating that revenue receipt and revenue expenditure. In where expenditure part there is a revenue account, there is a expenditure part, non-plan expenditure and plan expenditure. That revenue account will be revenue expenditure is calculated from 10 plus 14, 12,43,514, and capital expenditure of that revenue expenditure will be calculated from the expenditure part, and revenue receipt will be calculated from the revenue receipt part. The revenue receipt will be given 87 total of tax revenue or non-tax revenue. That will be taken here, and after deducting you get 3,64,282. Now fiscal deficit, gross fiscal deficit. Gross fiscal deficit is total expenditure minus total revenue excluding borrowing. You remember the borrowing will not be taken at the time of calculation of gross fiscal deficit. Only recovery of loans, borrowing will not be taken. You will only take loans and net of recovery. Do not take borrowing and other liabilities. Here I have written all this data. Total expenditure is given in the questions from plan expenditure and non-plan expenditure. After adding that plan expenditure and non-plan expenditure, you get the total expenditure, and after that you only important to remember how to calculate total revenue. Total revenue is calculated from, you see the data, revenue receipt will be there, this tax and non-tax will be added one time, and we get 1, 2 or 3 is added, then you get revenue receipt. After revenue receipt, total revenue you have to calculate. The capital receipt is also a receipt. The total receipt will be recovery of loan, other recovery, borrowing and other liability. You have to miss all this. You do not take borrowing and other liability is not taken as a capital, taken as total revenue receipt. Excluding borrowing and other liability means 1 plus 5 plus 6 only. Here I have written 1 plus 5 plus 6. After calculating all, getting the data. Primary deficit, you know, physical deficit minus interest payment. Primary deficit, physical deficit is 490, 190 minus interest payment. In that between plan expenditure, interest payment 33170. That is very important part for the examination point of view. This question is coming in June 2018, which is very important for our, but that data will be mishap, so that you have to select all the part of which part will be the which part, and after that you have to solve the problem. For that reason it is so confusing trying to solve all these types of problem for their future examination, and it is very important, and best of luck for the coming examinations.